I moved out some months ago.
Good?
Oh, we're good?
We're in.
All right. So we're live right now?
Yeah.
So thank you for those of you that were patient with us at home. We were experiencing, oh, that's a nice picture. We were experiencing some technical difficulties, so thank you for sticking with us. If you could join us, please, as Mr. Joe leads us in the pledge. Please.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Richard.
We were ready. All right, so that brings us right to any questions or comments regarding tonight's agenda only? No questions or comments. And then consent agenda approval?
I'll do that. Approval of the consent agenda items as presented. Be it resolved, a motion to approve consent agenda items 5A through 5F. Consent agenda items are approved by a single vote unless they remove from being the consent item prior to the vote.
Motion. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes, motion carries unanimously. That brings us to,
Yeah, there was just,
just a few items.
Yeah.
Okay. We do have a public comment section. If you want to comment about anything now. Okay. All right. Motion to adjourn. Motion. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes, motion carries unanimously. That brings us motion to enter budget workshop session number 3. Motion. Second.
Second.
All in favor? Yes, motion carries unanimously. Lots and everybody gets unanimous.
That is an email, yes. So the reason we are in this little bit of circle, a little less formal.
Oh,
No?
sorry. We can back up. We can. Yeah, more for sure.
Well, yeah, just count. Okay, so in there is a retirement for Nancy County, education teachers. So we do want to thank her for her many service, 30 years of service. 30 years of service to San Lorenzo schools. So Dr. Soto, did you want to comment on that call?
Sure. It's going to be a work for, as Dr. Casada mentioned, for about 30 years. She has served the now population of course. She has worked at the elementary, middle, high school, so she has had an opportunity to work with multiple groups of students. She is a great aid to the students within our population, as well as our teachers, as well as our community. She is going to be definitely missed. We wish her all the best in her retirement. I'm sure that we as a district is together going to wish her all the best.
Congratulations to her. Thank you. Now, okay, presentation. Yeah, I was a little too late. Sorry.
So the purpose of the meeting this evening is to have a conversation about the largest portion of our budget, which is the program portion of the budget. That's why we are set up in this circle and a little bit less formal. It's to enhance the conversation. Nobody will be getting up in front of you to present. The admin team will, go through their particular slides from their seats. And we encourage the board to interact, ask questions as we go through the slides. And again, we'll address any questions at the end that may come up as well. So we've been focusing on the board goals this year as we go through each of these presentations, and they are what's guiding the budget as a whole. In particular, these are the 3 goals that are more focused within the area of the program budget. The fiscal and educational solvency goal is being touched upon within their SMART goal of that to ensure equitable access to technology resources. The students as self-directed learners. The SMART goal that we will be touching upon is continuing program and curriculum initiatives that include self-directed inquiry and standards-based learning in a positive school culture climate. And then the last one in the social emotional learning, diversity, equity, and inclusion goal, the screening and support for social and emotional wellness. So those are the key SMART goals from the larger goals that really will be touched upon throughout this presentation that have guided the budget development. So we will start with different enrollment factors, which Dr. Meyer will go through the slides for you and answer any questions you might have.
So for the district-wide enrollment for next year, we're currently at 1,504 students K through 12. Next year will be slightly less at 1,491. So basically, it is the same numbers across the board. For Clayton Huey, with the projected incoming kindergarten, the number is from 614 this current year to 634 next year, so a small increase. And the next slide shows how that affects class sections. So if we're looking at the 2021-2022 enrollment, that middle column there, essentially kindergarten is going to turn to first grade in the column after that. So currently kindergarten is at 5 sections. Next year we're projecting for 5 sections as well. First grade, 5 sections. You'll see the 2 highlighted changes there are moving from 4 sections to 5 sections in grade 2. And as a result, moving from 4 sections to 3 sections in grade 5. If we go back to the previous slide, you can see we have that smaller class hitting the 5th grade. And so that's the justification for lowering the number of sections there to reduce the ratio at the 2nd grade level.
Just a quick question. The kindergarten numbers, that's, you feel comfortable with that number? Or do you think that's it?
Sure.
What's the
Back
average
slide.
that you normally go
Thank you.
this time of year in school and five more kids either way, or?
Yeah, we're going on our historical trends, and we believe that the 5 sections will be adequate. That's our projected.
We're projecting higher than the live birth data that we have, that we've been using in the past, just based on the pandemic. A lot of families have moved into the district. So the live birth data that we had from the census we did a few years back is almost null and void. So Amy's using more up-to-date data in order to come up with a better projection as to where we would land.
That 24 in the 5 sessions, that's comfortable with that number? Thanks.
So the middle school projected enrollment, again, will stay pretty static. Currently, there are 340 students in the building. It'll go down to 320 next year. As the high school, same sort of trends. 550 currently in that building, down to 537 slightly for next year. But basically, we should see similar class sizes and things like that.
And no impact to what we draw from.
So to go into that with the building level staff, these are the FTE charts for each building. It's programs as a whole. So you can see that from our actual 21-22 versus projected, we do have an increase in FTEs from 146 to 148. In the middle there, it explains what we are doing. We are adding a DCT teacher for our elementary, which I believe is for the 2nd grade class.
Second one.
So there is a need in that area. 1 English teacher we will be adding into the high
Carrie,
school.
let's just kind of flesh that out a little bit,
Yes.
Carl, in terms of the numbers. Dennis, had some concerns because we had, and again, it's a COVID concern, and it's also a student with special needs concern, that if we have a DCT class with a high percentage of students with special needs, it becomes difficult to manage the class, manage all the needs effectively of the students in the class. So Dennis came to us, we had a conversation talking about the needs of that particular group. And, basically we came to the determination that we really need to have 2 DCT classes on that curriculum. So that would mean hiring an additional special education teacher to cover that. Ricardo, do you want to add anything to that?
That pretty much sums it up. I mean, it would be the highest grade that we have in terms of students exiting 2nd grade, going into 3rd grade next year, in terms of the pure number of students that would require that.
So we couldn't have upwards of 50% of our class.
Yes.
With special
And
needs.
it requires.
So for 3rd grade, 4 sections, 2
Two of them will be DCT and correct.
Which they have to be based on the teachers and contract.
But, in terms of, really meeting the needs of the kids in that grade level, it's a strong recommendation on the board to add that extra special.
Give it specialized instruction.
Thanks, Mary.
So in addition would be adding 2 teachers up at the high school, which would be an English teacher and a social studies teacher. Currently, we have significant overages in that, in those 2 subject areas, most in social studies. I believe they have 5 overages with 4 teachers, and English has 4 overages with 4 teachers. As a
What's that?
result,
What does that mean? How many sections are those teachers teaching? How many languages?
6,
6 out of us.
with 1 teacher teaching 7.
Okay.
Will we be adding the
So by adding a teacher, that takes 5 sections back. So there would still only be 1 overage in social studies. But then that allows us to utilize the staff that currently have the overages for supervision purposes, to be taking on more duty periods, helping in the cafeterias, in the hallways, and in different areas. So therefore, they wouldn't be teaching the 6 classes, they would teach their contractual 5 classes. The 5th teacher would teach 5 classes as well, and 1 teacher would teach 6.
I'm just curious, so that's not adding any classes then, we're just covering.
Well,
we're not adding hours.
yes.
So you-
What it does
Yes, you
allow-
are adding the
No.
electives.
But what it would allow, because teachers are stretched to their max right now.
Yeah.
Okay, in those departments, what it would allow is for more flexibility in terms of scheduling. If we were to consider additional electives or anything like that, we could potentially add them. Presently, we couldn't because of the fact that those class loads are, they're teaching that extra class, which really
Or
prevents-
2 extra.
or 2 extra classes, which prevents us any kind of flexibility in our schedule. So adding an extra teacher each.
So by adding the individual into the budget next year provides for building administration to start looking at their course catalog offering, to potentially start adding additional electives maybe in the future years.
So currently
Currently,
now,
as it stands,
we're gonna add a full body, I understand the coverage, I understand that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Concerns, but we're not adding any additional electives.
Well,
Not-
electives, so the good part about it is electives, especially in social studies, can change, like depending on student interest, depending on if we saturated student schedules with certain classes over years. Like, let's do something different. It's just now the teachers available to teach whatever electives we want to offer.
One of the things that we had spoken about right now with guidance and kind of talked about it is that there are a lot of kids who will take certain electives right away and then feel like they don't have electives later on. So one of the things that we kind of started to do was look at which courses we could do every other year. So that would benefit the kids a little bit better. They would be able to get into more classes and we wouldn't be pulled so tightly because the teacher isn't teaching that same class every year. So if that, to be honest, that's like my goal is to be able to not offer the same classes all 4 years, but do it every other. So we can bring some more classes into our program instead of just, having them all 4 years and then having kids take them kind of early and not having. So that's my goal. That's our goal, but.
Yeah, they provide more opportunities.
Right, exactly.
By, staggering the offerings.
Additionally, it also allows us to reduce study halls during lunch periods. Because if the teacher's schedule is maxed out, there's certain things we can offer at certain times. But now we can spread out our teachers in periods, load up on a certain period during the lunch period, so we have less kids in a study hall that aren't really studying.
All good things. Being able to add staff is amazing and, a great opportunity and really very efficient. So I was just curious about.
and then the only other extra add would be an overage at the elementary building, is adding an adaptive PE program down in the elementary for our special needs students.
Is that,
And that is strictly just an overage. It is not an extra FTE, it's a 0.2 FTE that would be added to one of the PE teachers' schedules. So if you recall, this year we did add FTEs to the budget through the federal funding. The American Rescue Plan required us to do learning loss and various different programs. So we hired 2 additional AIS teachers, one in the elementary building and one in the middle school. High school added an ENL teacher, elementary added a reading teacher, and then we did add another social worker district-wide. So these positions are continuing into the next year. They are federally funded. They'll remain in the federal program. Our goal is when the federal funding does dry out to roll those individuals into the general fund budget. We cannot do that at this time because that money is to supplement our program. We can't supplant that money. We will continue to evaluate the need for them. Obviously, every year we look at these positions and what are we doing? Do we need to continue them? We do feel next year these positions are critical in the progress we're making. So we will continue them next year and then we will reevaluate them for the following year. And as they start to potentially hit the general fund budget, we will review again to see those are the specific areas of needs, or do we maybe have to reallocate the funding to a different source?
Karen, the ARP is a 3-year grant?
Correct.
Harry,
Yes.
so there are 3 positions being added. The staff only changed by 2.
So there was some, because of the overages, so there was the 5 overages that social studies was teaching and the 4 overages that English was teaching, those dropped down the FTEs. So each 0.2 adds up, so it ends up washing out that way. You can see in on the other side of the non-instructional, the teaching assistants, reservation liaison, permanent subs, and our support providers have all remained the same. In the other area, you'll notice paraprofessionals have increased, and that's strictly based on student need driven IEP. We've had numerous children move into the district that have required additional services. So we've had to hire additional staff to help with that. Monitors we have increased due to COVID and due to the fact that we don't have staff to help with duty periods, we've had to implement other ways to find coverage. So at this point, we have budgeted for the 18 monitors. It's usually typically driven by if we can get them, if we keep them on staff, and what our actual needs are for the year. Some of those monitors are also paid though out of the cafeteria program because they are working for, especially in the elementary building, some of them come just for either the breakfast program or for the lunch program that they are paid for through that and not the general fund. All other staff in that category will remain the same.
Very exciting program going on at Clayton Huey. We don't just keep principals to the walls. We have a lot of education going on too. That's where he belongs. So. Exactly. We were most productive that day. I'm going to have Mrs. Jackson start us off and I'll jump back in.
We have some programs that are currently in place and are running there as well. Our primary years program. We are still a candidate school, but with that framework that's being implemented, you can see in all the classrooms that students are being more inquired. They are utilizing the QIP terms and traits without actually saying them, but you can see it in action. As we had right before our last presentation, that some students put on their own student action and owned up to what they felt was important to them, and they did it all on their own. We just put it on social media. And you can see that our students are thinking that they are coming up with their own ideas and figuring out how can I learn differently? What can I do? Can I learn fun? And the primary years program is helping guide our students there. Also, with the transdisciplinary approach, we're able to start seeing more of it and see more of it in our special area classrooms where our physical education teachers, they're now looking at how can they tie in their lessons to what's going on in the classroom. Our plus teachers working really hard trying to tie what she's teaching in Spanish with what's going on in any of the class, any grade levels. And she's also connected with our middle school program to see how she can help with information from middle school that's beyond. So there's a lot going on, and it's a lot of great work on all areas. Our No Place for Hate, we started that last year. We are accredited, and kids are doing fantastic work. They're actually coordinating with our DEI liaison, Ms. McMurray, and we're all working together to just bring all of our programs together. So, for example, in the month of April, we recognize the ability, disability, and awareness for all our students and staff, and we have our No Place for Hate ambassadors working with us on videos and helping that flyers, helping the word out. So it's coming from the students rather than from us. It's nice to have that collaboration because the students want to do
This student ambassador group was, a handpicked group of students from the great teachers that started as just something for us to have student input and has now kind of evolved into them telling us what to do. But in like the best of ways, like they said that we need to put out a fifth grade survey of, what are the needs of the kids. So later this week or early next week, the students are going to get their first survey from the principal. I'm going to piggyback off of Mr. Cohen and Ms. Mangonia's, little strategy that they use to send blast emails out that all of our kids are one-to-one. And they had questions that those students in the group created the survey with us. We put the survey together and we're going to get feedback from all of our fifth graders so that the fourth grade group that becomes our new No Place for Hate ambassador group has kind of like a stepping stone to build on. So it's really exciting work to see kind of the PYP and the No Place for Hate, partnering together that way. In addition, library media has been one of, a fantastic resource for us, not just in the last couple of years, but most recently with Ms. Craig's role shifting a little bit as PYP coordinator as well. She's been able to kind of morph what she does with a different scheduling technique for her. It has allowed us a lot more flexibility to get classes into the library and show a lot more what we can do with all of the technology that we've been bringing into the building and putting into practice. So it's been amazing seeing some of the projects that are starting to go on there and having that added resource where library is more than just taking books in and out. That still happens, but we're kind of adding on to the ability that we can, what we can do with that space as well. And the Harmony SEL has been one of those things that's always kind of been in the background, and we've been hoping to, really get it going. And now with our new social worker, Ms. Richards, she has been an absolute dynamic addition to our staff. She's really been amazing. I even heard there was people that were going to her yoga class outside of school last week because they're just the connections that she's making. But she's been pushing into all of the classes and kind of showcasing the characteristics of what we're doing and still building in the social work and all the social emotional things that we're trying to tap into. So it's been great to see her not only connecting one-on-one with kids, but also having the ability to kind of tap into those things that may be something in the past that was kind of brushed off to the side, and now SEL is becoming something that's oh, and our clubs. So most of the clubs that you're going to see on the right-hand column are going to be very similar to what we had in the past. We have our art and coding club. Cultural awareness is going to shift hopefully a little bit. Drama club, our yearbooks, Lego programs, our safety patrol student council. In the past, we had run a gardening club. We had a staff member with our paraprofessionals that was very passionate and wrote a proposal to have an ecology club, which is going to kind of take the gardening club to the next level and kind of not just talk about gardening, but ecology as a whole. Taking our No Place for Hate student program, which right now they've been getting pulled from lunch periods and eating lunch and running down during recess and trying to get some of these meetings in, to now it being an after school program where we can really sit down and hone in on some of the amazing work that you're doing. This year was the first year that we were offered the opportunity to participate in the Math Olympiad. So moving into next year, if the competition continues or not, we would like to continue the Math Olympiad Club and get something like that going to students. Just get that competition aspect going. And we have a PYP student leadership club that we're interested in trying to get going as well, to kind of have more than one student leadership group that might not just be composed of fifth graders. So PYP could potentially be open to students of almost all grades to have a leadership role in the school. And then I'm going to actually go to the bottom of this slide first. Because we had additional funds that have been coming in for after school enrichment, and we've had so many clubs that have either been brought to our attention or that we weren't able to run in the past, we decided that we're going to take some of the after school enrichment money and try to continue to run some of these clubs or some additional clubs that we've been considering over the past couple of years to see if there's a way. I would actually amend one or two of those. I sent an email out today to a couple of our teachers, like for choral lessons, for example, there's a possibility of like having something where it's actually that the students are writing music and composing music club that might be.
So there's a list of different groups there to highlight some of them. Community Service Club, which was potentially going to run this past year, but Ms. Bennett was out on leave. So we're hoping to be able to double down on some of our larger section clubs like art and coding, which have in the past have had to be split 7 sessions for one grade, 7 sessions for another grade. Now we would be able to run 15 sessions for each of them, and kind of capitalize on the student interest. And then up top, our summer enrichment program, we have been working with a couple of the representatives from Scope to be able to not only run our E&L program again, which we had great success with last year, but also these summer enrichment camps and kind of working those around some of the other summer camps that are going on. Dr. Reggio.
Wait, can you? I apologize.
Oh, sure.
Can we go back a little bit? In the past, we have a suggestion. They'll broke it down by general ed, special ed, soft and teen, and these are not. So I'm trying to understand, like, going into 3 sections in 5th grade, we're looking at 82 students next year. I was, that number is not. Because the math was adding up, because I'm looking at.
Right, so the class sections are gen ed sections, correct? Correct.
So then, 7 self-contained students out of that 82 and divided by the 3.
Correct.
We only have 25 for contract, so we're not really looking at class sizes of 28 or 29.
Right, no.
Okay, because I'm going to go way. Okay. Can we, like, so these are helpful, can we have that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's in the notes at the bottom of the presentation.
They're not seeing that.
They're not.
They're
Oh,
getting
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Just a quick question too, with the gardening club, are you guys still using the community garden?
Right, yep. We're actually,
The Boy Scouts?
we had got a couple people together early in the season to break all of the beds down and start to, so everything's broken apart, all the beds are ready to be reconstructed, we just have to get back in. We didn't want to do it before the winter, but it just gave it more time to weather it, so we're gonna get back in come springtime and start.
Let us know when the theaters.
For sure.
Start working.
You got it. So, this presentation will be standalone, but we will be able to put in another slide to demonstrate that, so that the numbers kind of work out, so you can see the actual website. Yeah, because I think sometimes we take that for granted, and like, that, but if the community sees this, they might not.
And I'm looking at that, I have to figure it in later.
Yeah, so we'll do that, and we'll add a slide to that, so we'll be able to.
Thank you. Please, Huey.
All right, on to middle school. This was a happy week at the middle school. If you have a middle schooler, you know the round tables are back in the cafeteria, so that has been a highlight. Students are very happy to be sitting with each other. And as I was walking through the cafeteria this week, I was thinking about the pandemic and how some of our students have never seen the round tables that we have in the cafeteria because they've been down in the overflow room at the high school. So it was great to see the students looking at each other and conversing and having that. Some of the I think it's important that we take some of those lessons learned from the pandemic, and you'll see some of those here tonight that we're talking about. And one of those for us is leveraging technology to our benefit. I think there are a lot of lessons that we learned and things that we can move forward. We can bring the roundtables back, and we can also take some of the technology things that we learned from the pandemic and bring them forward to next year. One of the ways, Vivian and I just had one of many of our transition meetings from talking about our 5th graders coming up from St. Huey to 6th grade. And one of the things that we learned from the pandemic is they really enjoyed the video tour that we did and posted over the summer. Now that was in the middle of COVID, in lieu of orientation type of thing, where we went up to the school in the summer and filmed ourselves giving a tour of the school and posting it online. Well, the feedback has been great, and the students love being able to watch that over and over with their parents prior to orientation coming. So things like that we're going to continue doing for the future, so that parents and students have that are great lessons learned. So on to next year. Planning for the future year is always fun for me, and it's exciting to talk about what we're doing that we love and how we want to add. So On to next year, we are an authorized international baccalaureate admissions program middle school. So to start off the year, one of the first things that we'll be doing is putting those letters right on the school and saying authorized IB school. It's a point of pride. It's something that we're very proud of. So we're going to showcase that right on the front of our school. And the students are going to have a community project fair. So you've heard about the NYC community project. Last year, we did it virtually with the students, and they presented to a panel of staff members. And this year, we're going to bring their projects to the middle school gym. It's going to take place on April 7th.
That's my birthday.
It is his birthday. Take note. So it's going to be an opportunity where students can really showcase their work. And we're going to have parents. Parents will be invited to come in. One of the periods, we're going to have our 6th graders here walk through, our 7th graders, so that the younger students can really understand and aspire to learn about what's coming for them and why we feel in Center Richards Middle School community service is so important. So it'll be kind of like science fair style, where you'll have an opportunity, the board will be invited to come in as well and walk around and kind of take a look at the projects that our 8th graders have participated in this year. But if you're not able to make it, the next Board of Education meeting, April 13th, we will have a few presentations brought to you. So we'll pick a few projects, and students will come with their projects and present a taste of the community projects. We'll also have our community project advisors here and be able to kind of give you an overview of what the students accomplished. So we're looking forward to have our first community project fair next month and continue that next year and see how we can enhance it once we do our first one this year. We're going to continue with our in-house professional development workshops. We're primarily focusing on new hires, new staff members, and also opening up to our current staff members and say, hey, we've been at authorized NYC school and saying, who would like a 2-day refresher? So we're bringing the category training in-house. That's something also that we've done since COVID. That's really worked out well. We're able to do it right here in this room, keep our teachers in Center Richards, and kind of combine a refresher for current staff with a new training for staff. School-wide need-based tied to the learner profile. So this is something new that we're going to be doing next year. We're going to have each grade level take one of the learner profile trees. We're going to have each grade level pick 2 and do some type of school-wide event after school or in the evening tied to the learner profile trees. That's a student-led initiative. So for example, if it's the month is inquirer, they may come up with like a STEM-based activity, or if it's communicator, maybe they want to do an open mic night or a singing competition, or knowledgeable, they want to do a trivia night. So we're going to have student-led events tied to our learner profile trees after school next year. On to student voice, agency, and participation. So the first one I'm very excited about. As a building principal, you have like goals and visions for the school, and some are immediate, and today I'm going to do this, or this year I'm going to do this, and some are years out. It's like big plans, big picture, dreams. And this has been one that I've had on the list since the day that I started, and some teachers in school have heard me talk about this since that day. And sometimes the time is not right to bring something in and implement something. And this is the time for virtual morning announcements. So what we're going to do, we're not starting next year, we're not going to use the PA anymore for our morning announcements. They're going to be live every day on the smart board with students in the morning, right? Live during the, during homework. Thank you. Homework is the word I'm looking for. So it's just really great to see this become a reality. So we've worked out all the logistics. We're actually going to pilot this in the 4th quarter on Fridays this school year to work out like those kind of kinks and kick off the start of the school year. And it might just sound like putting announcements virtually, but what it really does is it brings the students front and center. We're going to involve more students. The media club is going to really take this on. I'll show you working with Mr. Holder on the technical aspects. And this is what the set is going to look like right there in the corner of the room. So we're staged. The students helped create this with Mr. Bolger. It's hard to see the picture, but they have a light right here. Their microphone is right here. The camera is set up here. And they're starting to practice. They're starting to shoot right here in the corner of the classroom. So we have it set up right here in this room in the corner. And we are thrilled. So it's going to obviously student voice and involvement, also parent and community participation and communication. We're going to then take that video every day and post it in the section of our website so parents can see, if you have a middle schooler, perhaps if they're audio PA, then inside middle school, high school, some students listen to the announcements, some students half listen to the announcements, and now we really think by putting them up on the screen and having it be student-led, students will be glued to that and really they'll
the yearbooks are on sale, and have a yearbook advisor talk to students, or if Mrs. Fabian and I have a message that we want to speak to the students about, we have 5 minutes every morning to do so. And instead of announcing the score of the game, we can have a few of the students on the football team talk about their favorite play. So it's just a really way to bring our school to life. We're very excited about that. Yoga club. So this is just an example of a student-driven club. I had about 6 students come to my office recently with an idea for a club for next year. So it's in, and we're going to make that happen next year. They did the legwork. They have an advisor, and they're very excited to suggest a new club, and that is in the budget for next year. Drama club and hip band. So that drama club was right before we had our first middle school production right before COVID, and our second one this year. But what made this year special was the introduction of the student hip band. So for the first time in Santa Marta's history, there's been a drama performance, and the pit has been full student participation. We had middle school students and high school students in the pit, and if you have a chance to see it, I just picked 45 seconds of a clip that you can kind of appreciate the students and the pit right here. So it was remarkable. I just want to say too, these students are still massive. Performance was in February. So for them to coordinate the musical piece with their performance while going by all of our COVID protocols was a hard task, and they did amazing under the leadership of this. When Mrs. Reed and Mr. Ario came to me the year prior and pitched their idea, I said, all right, I love it. And you think you could do it with the middle schoolers? Like, can we do this? And they said, we can do this. So I said, go do it. And then it exceeded all my expectations. So we're excited to continue that into next year and just see how far we can take that collaboration. And I'm going to turn the second half over to Mrs. Fabian.
So to build upon the participation aspect that Dr. Reggio was discussing, we started to look closely at our recreation program for our students. We wanted to find ideas to make recreation, or rec as our students call it, a more enjoyable period for them and like keep them positively engaged with each other in activities. So we found by talking with students and staff that are attending recreation that they would benefit from increased seating at rec. So we have, you guys may see in the back, the points of the parking lot, some red square tables, more of them. They're no longer congregating all on one picnic table and laying out on the grass. So we added that. We've also added these red benches too around the basketball court. We are looking to enhance our basketball court area, add a foursquare area, and also add permanent cornhole. So we're very excited about that. To me, rec is a vital time for our students, not only for them to get fresh air and have a break, but also like enhance their social skills and the opportunity to interact with each other. And if they have some structured activity, that time is so much more productive. So next, we have been envisioning our library update. Our current library was designed in a way to meet the needs of our students utilizing desktop computers. That is no longer a need, right, in our world. So we're envisioning like a more flexible space for our students and our staff where they can work together with their Chromebooks in a comfortable setting and keep that space and opportunity for enhanced group work, things like that. Our reading, E&L, and special education room. We Dr. Gio and I walked the building, just trying to envision how, again, we can improve upon these areas for our students and for our staff. We engaged in conversations with them. We looked at some of the current spaces that we're utilizing and some of the things that we're thinking about moving forward with is redesigning some spaces so our middle school E&L students can be housed the 3 periods that they go over E&L support within the middle school building. They don't have to travel down to high school to have this. In addition, we're looking to improve a couple of spaces by making them small instructional spaces where reading can be more intimate. They can have the resources right from classroom there. In regards to technology, as you know, the One-to-One initiative has been a huge hit. Our teachers are in love with the fact that our students have Chromebooks. It has made the instructional pieces for them, improve beyond belief. And even I know with the you said like the counselors like not having such a fact that students have Chromebooks, they don't have to sign out computer lab, get a card any longer. It just makes for a much more efficient and smooth production of instructing our students in the areas that so we also have in the middle school enhanced all the smart boards. Every teacher now has a new smart board. And we have in the library accessible to our students every day. Our tech team is available for support for students and staff if they're having issues with their Chromebook or device. Next, in the areas of diversity, equity, and inclusivity, and emotional learning, we too are working on our movies for AIDS definition in the middle school. We have had 2 events already this year. We're working on our 3rd event in April, and it's going to highlight a disability awareness month. And then for the Butterfly Project, we're working with our clinicians and our counselors. This is a not-for-profit group that's going to help them out. This group specifically works with female students and helps them develop skills of self-empowerment, self-worth, building their confidence. This year, at the end of the year, we're going to pilot the program, and next year, we're going to be able to run it for the lastly, our parent health and wellness thing. That was an initiative again that we did this year. It was a very big hit. We have a couple of pictures here. Basically, the past couple of years, some of your own children may have experienced in their physical education classes. We invite the wellness in. It's a mindfulness program, and they teach our students mindfulness skills, stress management, how to think mindfully while they're eating, while they're doing their artwork, all those tools. And then we were able to offer a parent event this year. It was 6 sessions. They were all highly attended, and parents basically learned what the students learned in the 2 periods. So we want to continue that program for next year and look for ways to maybe work with some other organizations and do some other opportunities beyond mindfulness.
So to close out this slide, our clubs are on the right. I'm not going to go through each one. Many have run in the past. I put in bold at the bottom the 2 new clubs that will continue to abandon yoga will be branded for next year.
Yep.
Okay. To close out the middle school, the enrichment money, we're going to utilize group services that we did this past year for the summer program. We're going to continue with our E&L summer program and provide transportation to those students. And then we're going to have our summer enrichment camp. Right now, we're thinking to piggyback right off Camp Creativity and do it those months, right, the 3 hours right after, those weeks, and piggyback right after, and has it right here, thinking of at middle school. And our after-school enrichment monies for next year, we want to, this is student-driven, student request, have a dance team at the middle school. So we're very excited about that. We have a few passionate dancers that would love a dance team and requested it. So we thought this.
That'd be a club or an athletic team?
It would be a club. Yes, correct. Continuing that parent-child mindfulness program in the evenings that Megan spoke about in the previous slide, and this money would be used for that. We love the way to kind of bring the parents along and connect with their child in that way. And also, we're leaving some open things there for student-driven club interest. So inevitably, every fall, I have students come into my office with a new club idea. When the club sheet comes out with the dates and times, they have one to add. So I always am like, ooh, I try to explain that we actually created the club sheet already and the budget is allotted for, and try to find a way to utilize their ideas and passions, you know, in-house or without an official club on record. So what we're going to do this year is kind of leave a few spots for student-driven club interest. So when they come to me in September, when the clubs come out, you can say, yes, let's make it happen and add this club. So we're excited about that. Really kind of leaning into that student voice.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so I will take over the high school now. So a few of the things that we'll talk about have actually been discussed at the middle and the elementary school level. It's kind of like everyone, which is kind of exciting because that means that we're all on the same page working together. And as they go from elementary to middle to high school, it really is something that they're building upon, which is the whole IB International Baccalaureate program and the whole purpose of it. So one of the things, the TOK presentation or the CAS presentation. So our International Baccalaureate students, the diploma program students, do a TOK theory of knowledge exhibition. And similar to what Dr. Reggio was talking about with the MIP, almost set up in my mind, vision, kind of like a science fair where they're able to kind of discuss what their projects were. It's similar to that. I talked to Mr. Roberts, the IB coordinator, multiple times this year about it. We're really excited to start to bring that to light where students can talk about a presentation and exhibition that they've done and kind of highlight it. And similar to the MIP, I would love for our current students, 9th and 10th grade students, to be able to see it in the library, kind of present it to the board, be able to have their parents come and look at it and, you know, just take pride in their work and all their hard work that they've done. One of the big things that we have noticed at the high school level is we love the MIP program, we love the DP program, but right now we have a gap in 9th and 10th grade. So in 11th and 12th grade, yes, we have our DP students. We also have many students who are taking some sort of certificate. So they're touching the IB program in some way. However, there is right now 9th and 10th grade teachers who are willing, able, and excited to learn more about the IB programs and how to kind of instill some of this knowledge and some of these learning theories into their curriculum every day. So it seems up with the middle school, and some of our 9th and 10th grade teachers are going to also be trained in MYP. Technically, MYP does go until 10th grade. So technically, yes, we're the high school, but we're still going to have our teachers trained so that we're starting to instill a little bit more of those characteristics, traits, study habits, some of those things that as we're watching our 11th and 12th graders right now, we see that maybe they're struggling. So being able to bridge that gap is something that has been a goal for myself, Mr. Roberts, and the whole team. We're excited for that. We're continuously focusing on our connections to the learner profile traits, approaches to learning. As you know, our students of the month are correlated directly to our learner profile traits. It's always fun when I get to call home and explain to them that their child was not just chosen because they did really great at math, but that they showed great character and they were caring or they were an inquirer. And it spreads the word, and parents love to hear that. The kids love to be put up on the wall, and I love that these words are what are being associated now with our students. As far as student growth, one of the programs that has really taken flight this year is our school store program. It started out as a little shop that some of our life skills, Ms. Segerson, Ms. Patinko, were able to kind of give them a job, some sort of real life job. And it has grown into our business. So we have a business in the school, they have a location. They go to the store, they make their purchases. They have our business students. So some of Jeff Mishler's students actually work with our life skills kids, and they all work together in the school store throughout the day. And seeing it it's very exciting for me because we knew it could happen. It was just, we had to get the logistics down and make sure that it would work work, but they send out surveys all the time to the students. They post on social media to see what the students want. Then they're ordering those types of sweatshirts and sweatpants and, our clubs are also, so our art club made these shells and all these like beautiful items, and then they're being sold in the school store. So it's even student work that's in there. And one of the great things that our school store also does is they will assist any club, sport, teacher, student who wants to run some sort of fundraiser. They can all do that over the school store as well. So they are raising money. They're not necessarily getting profits off of certain things. They're giving the profits to whoever is actually running the fundraiser, but it's still a great experience for their students, for all of our students. So it's been a hit.
Last time I was at the high school, I keep doing that. It was great.
Yeah, it does.
Like, being on a rollout.
Yeah.
Where you guys have done, it's great.
Yeah.
Are the middle school kids, do they be fine with that down the road? Is that something? Well, you got plans? All right.
Yeah, no, so some of our middle school students, like the candy aspect of the school store, and they like to find a way to go down to access the candy. So.
My supervision job.
We had to figure that out.
Yeah.
How you working in the school store down the road?
Work in a positive
Or
way.
find a space in the middle school, something like that down the road.
The school store is shortly going to be a Fortune 500 company.
They go public.
Yeah. It's
Why it's out there.
right.
And the coffee cup too.
Yeah.
Which never seems to
Fruit Crew is another one of my favorites. That is still going. They are now making breakfast. They're making muffins.
Yeah.
They're making things daily and along, so they send out a link for your coffee, which I put in every week. And now there's another link that they'll send out if they made breakfast for the morning, and they will deliver muffins, and they've done, yeah. So
Whatever
it's
they
amazing.
Whenever
Yeah.
they make that, they send out the link, get your hot breakfast today.
What's great is that they.
We have a chicken coop.
That's the intelligence.
That's the announcement.
They have a great.
I mean, it's getting better every day, so if you request it, it might happen. They're able to run these, we're gonna do a trial week, come by and stop by and kind of see what everybody wants, and based on that, I'm telling them, they're gathering data, analyzing it, like, look at all these things that they're doing, a true business. They might not be looking at it like that, but they really are. And then finding the need and then filling it. And that's how their sales are going up, because they're able to find out what people want and give them that in the morning. That's great.
Is Mrs. Severson running that?
No, Mrs. Well, yes, but Mrs. Phillips as the Fruit Crew, and Ms. Sigerson and Ms. Patinka do the school sport, but to be honest, they all work together. Yeah.
Great. I
Yeah,
think it's
all the
great.
kids work
And
together.
there's another aspect to this that, believe it or not, is very helpful. But we have some kids that have some challenges and, push the limits or whatever else. And we're trying to give them an identity and a connection so that they may not do things they shouldn't be doing in school or whatever else. So we're actually using it almost as a restorative justice kind of thing where, hey, listen, you want, oh, no, I won't do anything right. I just don't want to work in the store, like, so we use this for some behavior.
Earlier, giving them a treat.
Yeah. And they take, it's amazing. They take so much pride in it. Like, I want them to get this stuff, like, people knocking on the doors. Can I work in the store? So it's, there's a lot of angles to it that's been helpful.
Okay, so we spoke a little bit already. You guys spoke about the library. As you know, it's a joint library, middle and high school. We feel very adamant that this space it's a great space. We just, at this time, need to shift the focus from what it used to be to what it is now. And I think a big thing is going to be our flexible seating arrangements for collaboration. Students are just going to come in and want to be in the library year round, that kind of environment. So that's what we're trying to create.
Is it just flexible seating, or is it more like a makerspace?
Yes, there's makerspace area, absolutely.
Okay.
So in addition, just to piggyback on that, we received a grant from the Office of World Languages at the State Education Department because we are running the world language program, the Untitled language class. We were eligible for this grant. They did call us to let us know that they had funding for us to build upon that program. So with that funding, we are purchasing some more artifacts to put in the library with shadow boxes similar to what you see here in the boardroom. So we are purchasing another wampum bell, some regalia, some other materials to show the history and what the, Christmas Duck Nation means to the district. So that's, also another improvement that we'll be seeing forthcoming in that particular area of the library to see that the Native American collection really grow, in addition to providing different seating area, for the children to really understand the history and the different cultures that we have here in St. Regis.
Absolutely. We've been working closely with Ms. Novice to kind of figure out how best to utilize the space and celebrate their heritage and see what it is that we can bring into the space. For DEI and SEL, similar to the middle school, we are going for our No Place for Hate designation. What is exciting at the high school, I mean, you can see on the right-hand side that we have a ton of clubs, and all of our kids are very, very involved. As far as diversity, equity, and inclusivity, it's not just something that we talk about, it's something that we are living every day. We have a class that is DEI. We have a club that is DEI for kids that maybe couldn't fit it in their schedule. We have a DEI liaison. So Mrs. Marino, Ms. Hessian, Ms. Godioso, they have some impact on this, obviously under, Dr. Soto with the DEI committee, and watching it kind of infiltrate through the entire building has really been nice to see. Students in all different areas are able to be touched by this in different ways, depending on what their schedules are like, whether they can stay after, or whether they're taking it during the day, or whether it's, some of the kids from the DEI committee just did a Girls with Grit webinar, which was a pretty amazing experience for them. They really liked it, and there's just different things that we can give to our students. So that's one of the exciting things.
Are we
Yes.
starting a science research program?
Right now, we're looking at our student interest as far as how big the sections would be. To be honest, the student interest has been low. So I think that it would depend on that.
And then the other one, we want to talk to the government, which is amazing presentation. So they want one of my stood out. Like,
Okay.
I don't know what happened. That's not listed. I don't.
So we didn't run it this year. We didn't have some, I had posted for it. I don't know who used to be the advisor of it. But usually the kids, if they really want something going, they. Okay, so I know that Mr. Winslow is with your leadership. So I don't know if I can get somebody else to. Well, like
Just to answer that question is, I think all of our clubs are always flexible, based on interest and, we continually survey. Ms. Magnolia has a leadership club, which she uses to talk about that item, or what graduation will look like, or what, senior events will look like, whatever else. So she does that on a constant basis, so we will be exploring that.
That presentation was just so vivid, and now it's like there's so many years removed that you don't even necessarily know. And it's from Albany, like.
Yeah,
That was,
it was
Mr. Shivani was.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was.
we can look back at that. They, I don't think it believe it ran with COVID because of the trips.
Yeah, it did not run for 2 years. And I think prior
We
to
actually-
running it ourselves, the students actually
We
feedback
partnered with
with William Floyd,
Floyd, yeah.
because they have a very large program.
We practiced with Floyd prior to becoming an official club, and it was awesome. The Floyd came here and we did like a mock.
Yeah, so just something that I saw recently that some of the kids were back up.
They just
Albany.
went last weekend.
Yeah, so it's just something that, I just know that, it's may not even know now because they're now for some bigger, so it's just something.
Absolutely, love it. Absolutely, and like Mr. Phil said, we're constantly listening to student feedback, and community feedback, and whatever we can do to kind of strengthen our program we want to. One of my favorite things that we did this year is we had a club and activity fair. It was the first time, I believe, that we've done something like that. I just felt it was very important to get our students back into being engaged, remember what it was like to be in school, part of a club. A lot of kids were very nervous coming back full time, being in the building. And it was pretty amazing to see the students set up the clubs themselves, they were running them themselves, they were giving out information themselves. Other students came in, walked around the gym, and were signing up for clubs, and then ended up following through. I talked to the advisors afterwards, and kids really did take advantage of that time, and clubs that they didn't even know we had, they were that, even the older kids, I thought it was gonna be more so for the 9th and 10th graders, because they're the ones that hadn't really been in the building. But some of our 11th and 12th graders didn't know some of the clubs that we were offering. Yes, I give them a little packet that says, you know, these are our clubs, but until you kind of see it, it doesn't hit as, you know, as close to home. So it was definitely exciting. My plan, as we were going through it, we were already thinking about how we make it better for next year. I would like to move it up a little bit in the year. Obviously, we had to take some time for everybody to get into the swing of things with this year, but next year I would like to do it a little bit earlier. Definitely have it for the 9th graders, and it was well received.
It just occurred to me also, the youth government in particular, it may also be a little easier to sell and or make available, because if we do have the additional resource studies teacher with teaching less, that might be a club that they may be more interested in, willing to jump into to get to their performance. It's good timing to explore that.
Okay, and then lastly, our E&L family connection, the most fiscal time has been doing an amazing job, really connecting with our family and our families, and we have, as you saw in our previous slide, our E&L teacher who is actually pushing into some of the classes. So we've been seeing great improvements. We've had many families and parents come to back to school night and open house and meet with the teachers. We've seen a lot of improvement. So I'm appreciative of the program. I'm appreciative of the NOSCA and everyone. So, okay. Okay, so for our summer enrichment, again, we are, right now, one of the things that we're doing with our email program is we are doing something after school enrichment for our students. So it's a little bit harder for the older kids. A lot of times they work over the summer, so it is a little bit more strategic as far as timing. So it is based on kind of student availability and teacher availability. We are planning on running a few sports camps. Last year, our college boot camp was a hit. Me and Marino ran 2 different sessions, and the students loved it. They talked about it a lot, that they felt very prepared at the beginning of the year. So we're definitely going to do that again. Another thing that they students have requested is something about scholarship essays or college essays. Our guidance counselors actually just pushed into the 12th grade English classes to show our 12th grade students again where the scholarship link is on our school website, just to remind them that this is where you can go, this is what you can do. And so having these opportunities would also be another time for them to kind of see these things right in front of them. Summer Academy, as far as region review, in the past, we've always done a few weeks right before their regions for students who are interested. It's not mandated, but it's something that students can do if they would like to sit for their regions, either improve their score or take the exam again. After school enrichment, one of the things that we feel very passionate about is attendance has been a struggle. As we know, COVID has had a huge impact. Our students need seat time. They need to make sure they're in the class for a certain amount of time in order to get Regents credit, in order to get graduation credit. So one of the things that we've done is created an attendance program for outside after school hours. If a student has to make up specific amounts of time, there is an appeal process. An appeal process includes documentation if they were out for certain reasons, a letter that is written, sometimes testimonials from other staff members, talking about their hard work ethic, things like that. And now we're also going to be including time after school to make up for it, to try to give kids an opportunity to get the credit during the year instead of having to either go to summer school or take the class over again. So we're just trying to give them as many opportunities as possible. And I'm not sure if anybody heard about the speaker that we just had. Did you hear about our fisherman, Nick Bachman? I've been hearing a lot of good responses that Jeremy posted on social media, and some of our students then posted also back and forth with him, and it just seemed like a really good motivational moments that our students had. It ended up being a perfect day because it's when we were able to get everybody in the LGI, all the kids were together. There was literally dancing up on stage, so it was a fun day, and that's kind of one of the things that we look forward to continuing to bring to the school.
Okay, athletically, we want to sustain.
I don't know which one the issue with this falls under, but just kind of like, when we talk about jobs, kids get started.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's waned since COVID, but obviously it's.
We're actually gonna run a program, weeks with some help from my green novice through CEO Works. We're gonna have a 2-day career lab for some seniors who haven't ironed out yet any plans for going into the workforce. We're gonna have a 2-day workshop on like what an elevator pitch is, resume, how to present oneself, and then that's if those 2 days, we're gonna have a career event where vendors in the community are gonna come in and work with our students. They'll be able to sign up for the vendors that they want to pursue, and they'll like practice their interviewing skills with their elevator pitch and vendors give them feedback that day. The company that we're working with is again CEO Work, and they have that sometimes students make lasting connections at the event where they do an internship during or end up in a part-time job, something like that. So we're exposing some of our seniors, like I said, who have been entering workforce, or some routine, 12th grade class in Michigan. And a couple of our chaplains as well, and other juniors. So this year is a pilot program. We're hoping next year to make it on large scale. I think maybe some of you may have gone on a visit with Novice to Shore Main River, and we saw someone. So that's kind of what we're going to be here.
In addition, like this, that Dr. Richard mentioned about leveraging technology, a lot of them are virtual. So Jefferson, for example, will have virtual speakers, business classes. Utilize that as much as possible across all departments and all subject areas. So that's what it's doing. Is bring people in, it's more convenient to get them to spend a half hour or a couple hours with our kids.
Virtual enterprise event.
Your presentation with
The CEO Works.
well,
It would be, it's usually through Jeff's business classes, so it could be any, if they're taking an elective that it's offered in, or he's running those type of things, it could be anybody.
I think what your question is like how we can expose more kids to programs. Because we're working with the work, our goal is to get as many, what student could benefit from learning what an elevator pitch is, how to find my 16-year-old like now, right? So go get a job. So here's how you do it. So I think that we're looking at and then ways that we can bring this to our entire.
And we've also planning to utilize policies more for career training. That's another thing that we've done. So
We've got a significant number of students that do CTE for next year. So I think we have 31 students there. Next year. Tremendous. Wasn't that many?
So there's
18 or so. So we haven't doubled, but, and, there is, BOCES several years ago did like this 3-year cost average. So it's manageable. It's not a huge budget or anything like that. But kind of ease into those costs. And I think our position, and my position is that that's the kids' support part of the trade. Yeah, I mean, even IB has a career path also. Chris and I have talked about trying to take a look at that and say, well, what does that career path look like? Once we settle into leg of IB always continuing to think about, all different opportunities.
It's almost supposed to be, that's something you need. Some universities, processes through facial stats and that. Now the COVID, some of the restrictions, but they slowly get access to some of those.
All of those things.
Yeah,
Take
it's a
them
long
back
time to
to-
get back into, yeah. So I think that was really helpful. I remember that, basically practice.
It gives kids great experience. Local care and connected.
There's kids who want to go to college.
All right, so athletically, we certainly want to, we're asking to sustain what we're doing now. I think everybody in this room probably knows that athletics has had a tremendous weight on our shoulders for a number of reasons. One is with COVID, we've seen a reduction in kids participating over the last few years, which is something that's starting to build up now. We've had issues with busing, which has created situations where games had to be changed, night games, travel is different. It's changed and revamped athletics across Suffolk County or across New York for sure, with all kinds of things that we're doing in Section 11, which is like we're starting to move towards geography placement so that there's less travel, so buses can get our kids home from school and then practices. So any given day, we can have a bus for 3:15 to go to Matatuck. And all of a sudden we'll get a call at 1 o'clock saying the bus is not going to be here till 4. So then we got to call Montauk, we got to call the officials, and we got to make sure that the game gets changed to 5. So there's a tremendous amount of challenges that we've had and we'll continue to have. In addition to the busing, we've had a huge drop off of officials available for games. So again, creative things have to happen where we have to move games all different types of days and nights and do all types of creative things, play games without officials, especially at the modified level. So there's a lot of pressure on everyone to make something happen and have a positive experience for our kids.
And even moving games to weekend, Saturdays.
Sundays.
Even Sundays.
Right.
Just because the availability of transportation and officials.
Right. So again, it's been a challenge over COVID. It's going to continue to be a challenge with busing and officials for years to come. Again, which is why Section 11, for example, one thing was the geography placement in a lot of sports. So if you haven't already seen it, you're going to start to see it in pretty much all sports, which is very good for a lot of reasons, specifically keep kids off the buses for a long period of time.
When you say jack, like you mean like you might not be driving an hour.
Correct. So I'll give you a perfect example. This year in basketball for the middle school level, we can end up going out to Montauk or Springs or whatever else. So I'm working with Section 11 that we're going to actually start to play more of either close to center on the South Shore or play on the North Shore, Matatuck and South Old, which is a shorter trip. So we're going to be altering for our own purposes, selfishly, but across the county that's happening.
That's awesome because it's kind of like the hardest thing if you're 7th grade and now they go to school and they get on the bus to Montauk and then play and come back. That's awesome.
Right. So all that's happening. We are all rebuilding our programs. Numbers across the board, again, all across Suffolk County in particular, have dwindled a little bit. So my goal for next year is to, again, the model that we're using in all of our schools is to really develop a student leadership team about athletic related issues, whether it be internal or external, and get the input from the kids so that we can make positive changes and get through these struggles in a better way and really hear from the kids. Just from again, nothing new really added. As you know, we are starting a pilot program of girls flag football this year that was funded by the New York Jets, almost completely funded by the New York Jets. So that's something that will be new in the budget for next year. And I just actually emailed Dr. Sarah McLaughlin about we have a boy in 8th grade who's going to be a 9th grader who wants to do independent swim next year. It's a very small cost, which doesn't need an increase in our budget because we can handle it with what we currently have. As you probably know or remember, we have Noelle Jordan, who's an all-state swimmer. She's going to be senior next year, so she's going to graduate out of the program, and this particular boy will take over that spot.
Is that Williams Lloyd?
What's that?
Where do they go? Is that Williams Lloyd?
For independent swim?
Yeah.
No, so independent swim is they swim privately with their club. They pay for it out of their own pocket, and we provide a schedule, a bus, and a supervisor. What happens is if there's meets at any schools that have pools, Independent swimmers swim after that. So all the independent swimmers from all across the county that don't have their own team will show up in an organized meet at different locations throughout the year. When a pool's empty at Sachem, it's at Sachem. When it's at, Sayville, it's at Sayville. So we've had Noel for the last 5 years. This boy now will join in the 9th grade. So it'll be 1 year layover. We're gonna have a small cost, a bus a few times. And sometimes the parents don't even want a bus. They'll say, I'll take my kid, and the supervisor will just meet him there. So sometimes that's not even a cost. So those are the only really increases that we'd be looking for athletics. And we're just going to try to rebuild the numbers of kids interested and really get the input of the kids and try to enhance what we do athletically across the board.
Jeremy, just a quick question. I saw the numbers of, certain sports in the junior higher.
Yeah, certain sports.
I
Yeah.
don't, rather talk over the mistake of the last couple of years.
Yeah.
We, combined with some local school. Obviously, switch. We have Wednesday, get some of that kids to feel the softball.
Yeah, I have a good relationship with the athletic director over there. Usually
have the same problem over there.
Right. Yeah. So that's definitely a possibility moving forward. We have been able to sustain our team. We only had to drop one middle school, I believe one middle school team this year, this season. And that's been actually a team we've dropped the last couple of years.
Those numbers high.
Right. From what I understand, the softball program, the 5th, 6th grade is coming up, so we should. Yeah. Well, and baseball is a perfect example. We have with some kids that I'm sure you're aware, we pulled up. We have a varsity team, a JV team, and then we have 27 kids registered for middle school right now. At baseball, the last 2 years after the state championship run was barren.
We have one
were trying to
team?
give it to- Right now,
One middle school team?
one.
Second one?
Well.
Oh, we do. The middle school softball team.
JV was light, so we moved some.
Yeah, but there's still now 27.
There's still a stand.
Originally, there was 21, and I just looked today, and it's because middle school starts next week.
Right.
So it's up to 27. But again, we don't know if they're going to actually stay. We have to wait till it pans out. If there is something, I always come to Dr. Massera and say, listen, can we do this? And we did that this year. We did it this year with the second basketball team, volleyball team. Basically, what we do is we reach out to see if anybody's dropped the team, which many teams do. We pick up their schedule, or we split the current schedule, pick up some extra scrimmages, and exactly what we did in the winter.
Otherwise, kids are gonna have.
That's not gonna happen.
Right. We don't want.
One way or another, that's not gonna happen.
Okay.
We're not. We have been great at not being able to cut kids. Sometimes at the high
We
school
have
level.
27 jerseys.
We'll figure it out.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. All right.
If they want to play, we want.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we all for, supporting the flexibility and as I said, when we drop a team, Dr. Massera has been great in getting your permission to add one, we dropped here, so we'll add one here because we can get the kids shuffled into this. So we'll continue hopefully to follow that lead. Yes. Okay, so we had done that and then COVID hit and we kind of stalled on that. So currently, my past request was, we have 2 varsity teams that we're looking to continue that with. And it went by contact sport. So basketball and volleyball are the 2 teams that we're still waiting to go forward with. I don't know if.
The only, what we're looking at is possibly using some of the enrichment money, the ARP funding, to help support that. Based on, as we're ironing out those after-school programs that the principals are putting in place, if there's a little bit of extra funding, we'd be able to add in assistant coaches for next year and then roll it into the general fund.
So it's volleyball, was it one?
Volleyball and basketball. Boys and 4 coaches.
4 coaches.
4 coaches.
Yep.
And then we would be complete unless we want to even enhance something else, but every major sport has their assistant.
Hey, because we have them now.
Correct. Okay. So moving on, before I get into the specifics of what's on the slide, I just wanted to let the board know, as you've already heard from the principals and the assistant principals, we're trying to do everything together. You'll see a lot of carryover. I think that you should know that this team works very well together. We meet every month and we try to coordinate, we purposely try to coordinate interaction between our clubs, our organizations, our programs, so that there is continuity all the way up from the elementary school. So we actually like each other, which definitely helps in working together. Most of the time, well, they like each other. You know, so although up here it says fine and applied arts, and we're talking a little bit about, you know, theater and band and music, we're certainly increasing, and we're seeing the building back up of our kids involved in NISBA and Scala and all these different organizations. But I want to expand that and understand that we're doing that in our business club. We're doing it in technology. In fact, robotics got into the playoffs today at Hofstra. They were a captain where they were able to select teams. I don't know the outcome yet because they were still working on it. I didn't get a text message yet. But they did really well in this 3-day tournament. So robotics, the business organizations, our teachers are really taking advantage of different activities, events, and competitions in all our special areas. So again, fine arts, but as you know, I'm responsible for all special areas. So we're pushing that, and we're having those interactions, not only with those organizations that offer these events, but also our clubs that can be linked to these events and these programs. And it's really starting to work, and we're really consciously as an entire team, literally our whole team, really pushing that to make sure that we take advantage of every resource that we have internally, externally, all the connections we have professionally. You know, Dr. Massaro is great at sending us all these different things, scholarship opportunities and so forth and so on, that we're pushing out to our kids, to our counselors, resources for mental health and social emotional learning and all that type of stuff. So there's a lot of real good stuff happening. You'll see up there specifically, we had kids do a Google Sheet interested in bringing back the music theory class. And one of our kids took the bull by the horns and got 27 kids that say, we want that course next year, we want it back. Because we were having low interest the last several years, we were having 3, 4, so we couldn't run the class. And we're seeing our efforts, I think, of communicating with the kids and communicating with each other, how we can intertwine everything that we do. And I think it's really starting to work out, and we're going to continue that push. So again, everything's about building these kids up to be connected to our programs, athletically, with clubs, organizations, and every resource we possibly can use to get our kids connected and thriving. And I think you're going to see that happen as we celebrate that toward and share that with you as we move forward.
Questions on programs for before we get into?
Thank you.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
So,
Just so we get to the board stuff.
yes, I'm sorry. It's happened. But this is actually really looking across the Marcus Batman. And I remember years ago, Marcus, when we were working on the smart schools improvement. And there was always a dream that we had to go one-to-one. That was one-to-one initiative. And at the time, we didn't have funding for it. And hearing my colleagues talk about the great technology that's available to our students and seeing firsthand how students are utilizing the technology, it's such a problem. It really is. So that is the good part of this is kind of the boring piece. I apologize, but when you do look at technology in terms of having sort of that Chromebook initiative, having smart boards, having all the other devices that we have across the district, there is other pieces that we have to keep in mind. One primary piece that I think everyone has been hearing about in terms of the news, in terms of some of the threats that exist when you have a system is cybersecurity. So next year we are doing something that's kind of twofold. We're looking at partnering with Eastern South Proceeds to do a cybersecurity disaster recovery program. It is something that looks at our vulnerability in terms of getting cyber attacks. It is something that we definitely need to do. It is, especially when we have the amount of devices that are currently being utilized across the district, which is about 1,500 student-wise, not to mention all the devices that are used by our colleagues, by our staff members. So it is something that we're looking at doing next year. The other thing that we're looking at doing is at the secondary complex. Each teacher at the secondary complex has a desktop computer. The desktop computers that we currently have are at the end of They're at the 5th year. They're out of warranty at the end of this year, which is June of 2022. So instead of investing funds into buying them another desktop that is stationary, that they have no mobility with, we decided to invest in laptops. And what that does is that gives our teachers the opportunity to not only utilize the device in the classroom, but also utilize it at home. So it is going to give them a lot more flexibility, and I hate to say this, but you never have to go to a virtual platform. Our teachers have the ability and have the tools to move into that virtual platform without any complications. So that is what we're doing. It is coming out of grant. So thank you, Gary, for
Multiple grants, actually.
multiple grants. Yes.
We got very creative with a lot of grant offerings that we had to make this happen.
So that is very exciting. The other piece is that the Chromebook replacement program, we are going to start it next year. And over the last 2 years, where everything has been happening with COVID and the necessity that we saw that kids had for a one-to-one device, we invested. Thank you to the community for supporting this investment. We purchased about 1,300 devices in the last about year and a half. But knowing we have 1,500 students, we have about 200 devices that are out there that are at the end of life. So we plan to replace them over next year, and that will be a lease agreement that will go over the course of 4 years, so we can kind of replenish that. That's something that we will have to be mindful of moving forward, because it's something that we actually have to add to our budget, because devices that we utilize do have end. Generally speaking, Chromebooks last 3 years, we're pushing them to 4 years, but that is something that we have to take. In terms of maintaining our infrastructure, we're looking at how do we renew and look at some of the digital resources we have. We're trying to make sure that every digital resource, whether it's software or other device that is on a server or on a laptop, that it is something that is aligned to our curriculum, aligned to New York State standards, aligned to what we're doing, aligned to benefiting the students and benefiting our program. So that's something that we continuously look at in terms of looking at the resources and making sure that there is clear alignment to what we're doing, to our B program, to our SEL program, to our UI program. And thank you all for mentioning SEL. And replacing infrastructure. So we have on the docket next year to replace those switches that, once again, are in life that we need to replace. And the last thing is the threat assessment to be completed utilizing personal learning. That will be a comprehensive threat assessment, looking at how individuals in-house are utilizing the devices and sort of utilizing them to get to external sources, and how external sources are the vulnerability that we have within our system that they can get into our system. So that would be a comprehensive plan, looking at the vulnerability of our system as a whole, making recommendations to the district, and then we would have to look at the recommendation and incorporate the things that we know we need to do to sort of make our system a lot more robust and stronger as a whole.
With all these new devices over the last couple of years, more technology.
We did. So I was going to mention that I want to just take a moment to really thank. And Bill and Owen for the work that they've done throughout the last 2 years in terms of getting our staff, getting the students, getting our community acquainted with technology and acquainted with the utilization of technology. We did add a third additional person that we contract for BTS. So it is a third technical support individual that comes in every single day that provides support for our elementary and secondary complex. So it is a third person that is able to kind of troubleshoot for teachers, troubleshoot for students, assist Lenny and Bill at the technology resource center at the secondary complex to ensure that kids and adults don't necessarily have downtime, because now our entire system, in terms of the educational process, is really, a lot of it is dependent on the use of our technology. So we did add that additional support.
That was definitely.
It was definitely something that we did.
Absolutely, great, thank you.
Ricardo, that lease program for most is sustainable.
Yes, yes.
And what's the percentage?
I believe that goes over that 60%.
63%.
We could already see it on that, Terry.
So,
Through the BOCES process. Yeah. So on to the numbers, how much is this costing us? We spoke of a lot of great things that we're doing. We spoke of a lot of adds to the budget. Keep in mind, a lot of those ads and a lot of these great initiatives we've done this year are grant funded. You know, the after school programming, credit recovery, attendance recovery, a lot of that is happening through the grants. So while there's a lot of ads and a lot of enhancements, the picnic benches and the tables at middle school, that was thanks to the cursive funding. That was part of our initial plan to spend that money. So, you know, it may have sounded like we added millions and millions and millions of dollars to the budget, but we are supplementing a lot of that with the grant funding. So there are some adds to the budget and there are some increased costs, but you can see on the left, the pie chart that the program is 80% of our budget. It is the largest portion. That is the instructional core of the children. Capital and administrative costs are 10% of our budget. So what's making up that program? You can see on the other side that it's our actual instructional program, which is all of our teacher salaries, our textbooks, our transportation costs, our contracts that we have, our BOCES costs. That's all part of that $16 million that you see. The benefits, which are related to all the instructional staff, is 10 million. Those are our two highest cost areas. The third being the area of special education. That is for the special education teachers, as well as any tuition programs that we may have for students that can't attend our programs, and we may send them out to another program based on their needs. So you can see overall, it is a split cost to make up that 80%, and all of this makes up all these great things that the administrative team just spoke of. So the full budget, as we stand right now, is the budget is not balanced as of today. We are still working through it. Keep in mind, April 1st is the big day. April 1st is when state aid usually comes through. As long as there's an on-time budget, we will get numbers usually that evening. We don't anticipate much in the area of change with regards to what state aid we are receiving. The only numbers I anticipate possibly changing would be our excess cost aids, which is costs related to our special education children. We've just recently resubmitted and updated the cost inputs from last year. Those numbers were due mid-March, so we just recently got all that in, which will go into that run and give us a little bit better picture of what we'll get on that. The other piece to that, though, is we have what has passed with one House legislation last week is the capital outlay project. So as you may recall, this year we put in the $100,000 project. Both houses have passed at least $250,000 instead of the 100. The Senate, I think, said up to 500. House is saying 250 only. So we are pretty we're pretty confident that the 250,000 is going to go through, which gives us greater flexibility as far as what projects we're going to continue. And, you know, facilities committee will work on that next week at their meeting to kind of reshift now our thought, because those lists were 100,000. Now we have a lot more money to work with. So that will adjust the budget a little. That will affect the tax levy. So our next presentation on April 6th, we will work through that with the board to see where we're comfortable at and what do we want to do to finalize those projects, as well as the revenue side of the budget.
But I think just to let you know, if we go from 100 to $250,000, we'd be foolish not to do that, because we would be able to do about $190,000. Or excuse me, for every $250,000 worth of work, we get reimbursed $190,000 on the year. So it makes a ton of sense to make sure that we maximize whatever the capital outlay projects are.
So then every year after that.
Every year thereafter,
project.
expense-based reimbursement of $190,000. So just really makes a ton of sense.
But that would increase the levy.
It would increase the levy in year one. And then,
Now,
so right now we're at 2.4. It would go up to about 3.08. We do have the ability
We
to,
talked about offset.
so
right, so we're looking at, I know we had spoken about keeping it under 3, and that's the conversation we have to continue to
And we're
have.
always already
We
taking
could always
on
apply further debt reserve to it to keep it down below the 3. So that is what.
What do we
Sarah and I
have,
are
what do we have
talking
total? That's for-
300 and, just about 350,000. And we're currently applying 150,000.
So that brings us down to 200. What is the recommended amount we should keep in that reserve?
We have to use that reserve
We have
to
to.
pay off the debt, yes, yes. So our original plan was to use it over the next 4 years,
Right.
apply 50,000 each year thereafter. So if we took 50,000 now, we would just.
So
shorten
200,000
that fund.
total.
Yeah.
So if we took 50,000 now, what does that do to the half point?
It drops us down to, I think it was like a 2.8, 2.7, 2.8 area is where that number would land. We're working through those calculations.
So 4%, 0.4 as opposed to 0.5, actually a little 0.5.
So again, we're waiting on that 250 to come through on April 1. April 6th, that's going to be the bulk of the conversation. We don't adopt budget till April 13th. So, we purposely put that extra budget workshop in there, knowing state budget would come out prior to adoption. We want to have a thorough conversation with the board based on all recommendations of input to the budget. And the major conversation would be the tax levy now as a result of the original capital outlay budget.
So next meeting, if we still have a budget shortfall, we're gonna have to talk about things we're going to approve.
So next meeting, should we have a budget shortfall, we don't anticipate having a budget shortfall.
Should we have a budget shortfall?
We would bring to you the items of which we may have removed from the budget in order to balance. We will present to you a balanced budget.
We'll kind of get a list of things that we can discuss.
Yes.
What's most important to keep.
Dr. Sarah and I
Should
are
we have
starting to
the
work through
budget
some
shortfall?
plans and some ideas of how we will balance this budget. Again, teacher retirements are due April 1st. So like I said, April 1st is a big day. We find out if anybody's retiring, in addition to those that have already retired. State aid numbers come out. We'll find out about capital outlay, if there's any additional revenue in that area. And then again, it's another evaluation of our reserves that we're applying currently to the budget versus what we may want to do. So,
What did we apply this year?
so on the left, you'll see this number is the property tax at 2.47. It includes reducing our appropriated fund balance, which is currently at $1 million. It's reducing it to the 900 as per the board goal. Applying 200,000 from both ERS and TRS. That covers the increase from the percentage increase that they had. And then debt service of 150 and unemployment reserve of 35,000. So this year we only used we used 1.2 million in total. So it was $1 million from applied and we used 200,000 from ERS. So we would increase the use of reserves. And again, the ERS and TRS are just covering the actual increase in cost to those as a result of the percentage increase that we saw for this year, which is the purpose of that reserve. The unemployment reserve using 30,000, that's the number we budget. We have had, since COVID is now passed and we actually got refunded all those monies, we have had no unemployment claims. We haven't laid anybody off. We haven't had any resignations requiring that. So we don't plan to continue any unemployment costs. We do budget for it just in case. So that really would just also be a wash and at the end of the year fund it right back because we don't anticipate using it.
Plus carry the reduction of the appropriate.
Yes.
Carrie, you did that. Yeah. Can you remind me, Carrie, what's the number we want to get down to on that 800,000?
So we're currently at $1 million.
And we're taking 100,000 out this year.
And we were at 1.2.
Yeah.
We took a big hit on the health insurance this year, but we'll offset. Do you see
Yes.
that stabilizing or?
Unfortunately, there's no prediction. Night shift does not give us any projections. They don't tell us what's happening. It's a guessing game. Janine and I check every which way we possibly can. We sit through conferences and ask the question and they ignore the question. So it's shooting a dart on the wall.
So what budget would
It's very hard. So we had started off the budget with a 15% increase. We have lowered it to 12%. Dr. Sarah and I talked about where are we comfortable with, we did. So we are at 12% again. This current year, we only budgeted 7%. So it's still a significant increase because we did see that 12% increase. I can't see it going up by like that again, but it's an unpredictable area coming off of the pandemic, something that we have experienced, The expenditure side, the 47.7 million does include, as we mentioned before, the 3 teachers. It does increase security measures. It has capital improvements within there, and it has that Chromebook replacement that Dr. Soto just spoke of. So there's some great ads, some, helpful things to program that we've been trying to do for many years. So like I said, the $400,000 shortfall that we are seeing right now, Dr. Sarah and I are working through a plan to close that gap, which we will bring to the board on April 6th, with the hopes that that shortfall is not a significant practice program. That is all.
Should we have a budget short? We've discussed it, taking money, what would be better at the appropriated fund balance on debt service to have that conversation.
Harry, does the expenditures for capital improvements include any surplus that we can fund the capital reserve?
So this year, I anticipate we'll be able to, so should that reserve get approved this year, we'll be able to fund it on June 30th, 2022. I do anticipate this school year having fund balance to put some money into that reserve to get it started. We typically spend about 97.5%, 98% of our budget each year. So the goal is to take that extra 2% and put it to that capital reserve.
Right, but I'm talking about this budget. So out of that 400,000, any of that anticipated surplus that's going to the capital reserve. Could we shave that off, or is there anything out?
No, there is nothing. Correct. Yes, I see. There's no funding in there to help us fund the capital reserve.
At the end of next year.
Correct. There's no budgeted surplus to help it at this point. Yeah. It is a very tight budget. I'm comfortable with the budget. My eyes stopped twitching about 2 weeks ago, so we're in a good spot. It's usually a good sign. The entire month of February, it's twitched, so we're good. I'm feeling better. I think Dr. Sarah and I have a pretty solid plan going forward for us to present to the board for April 6th as to, depending on those things that will come through on April 1st, may or may not come to fruition. We anticipate still being able to provide a solid program next year and a balanced budget and a tax-friendly budget to our community.
And our grant money that we were anticipating having for several years, we're still okay with.
Yes, yeah, we have to, so that money has to be spent over, especially the American Rescue Plan, the E&L programs, the reading recovery programs, the after-school enrichment, all of that has to maintain for those 3 years. And we are, so we're shifting buckets a little bit and years based on actual spend. This year, we did come in under budget in some areas just because we had to get up and running so fast and some things just, we're still adding and, high school's still looking at different speakers to come in. It's still got months to go. We're adding the attendance recovery program in now. So we're, just kind of reallocating some of the funding. The CURSA money, you can supplant that money into your budget. It's not to necessarily supplement. So they're speaking of a library seating area, that to be CURSA money based on some savings that we've seen. When we created that grant and those expenditures to send to the state, we had to send them all 3 years worth of spending. We had no idea how much number, for instance, Clayton Huey was building out in their back parking lot, a sensory play area. It came in $5,000 in the budget. So, it was just, we quick ran some numbers, quick got some quotes. And when it came to fruition to let's implement this and go forward, it came in much less. So we're starting to see, all of that iron out, whereas now we're saying, okay, we might have some excess funds. What can we do with it? They're talking about libraries. Okay, I can give you some money for library now as a result of some of those savings. Yesterday, in Emergency Preparedness Committee, we spoke of adding the awning over at Clayton Huey, a front entrance awning to provide a little bit of shelter in bad weather, as well as make it distinguished to where the front entrance of Clayton Huey really is. And I think it would just be a nice addition to the building. The other area that we were speaking of adding was something else. Shifting our capital outlay funding. So for next year, we were going to do the baseball backstop in the capital outlay $100,000 project. Given the fact that we received the information of possibly $250,000, and we're also looking at bathrooms, $250,000 can go much further for the bathrooms versus the original 75,000 we were gonna say we had. So we're looking to now kind of swap things and do the baseball backstop using the cursor funding. I'm waiting on SED to tell me that I can do that before I do it. So that's kind of just in a holding pattern, and again, trying to get that answer before April 1st, so we can present to the board what capital outlay projects are gonna look like. Was there another project? I think those are the three major, the Clayton Union Library and the backstop are the three major things. And then again, like I said, the capital outlay funding would then focus on the 3 bathrooms at the high school. I'm working with the architects right now, as well as some vendors that are on contract to have them come in and give us some rough quotes so that we can start getting paperwork submitted to SCD as soon as the board adopts budget and get that rolling, hopefully for summer construction. A lot of movement is happening. These grants are tedious. It's a lot of money, and a spend of 3 years, it's very hard to track. The state keeps throwing at us, oh, now you need to report on this. So we're working through it, and it's been a little rough because the state's new to this too. So getting responses from them, it's been a little bit tough, some easier than others. But I think we have a pretty good handle. The team here has a good handle, and now they have time to prepare properly for next school year and for the summer programming to spend that money in the best way for the kids.
What is it? So,
Next Wednesday, a week from today. Yeah.
would it be possible maybe that conversation to walk through as a board, maybe some of the outside
Some of the proposals.
bathrooms,
We can
maybe
take a look.
before that meeting or set a date afterwards, as a board.
Yeah, I can throw it out, see if anybody's available, or maybe a little bit earlier, so we can get out and put some of this down. And
Yeah, it'd be good just to make those quick walk around.
I'd like to see the bathrooms, I'd like to see the backstop, the awning area, before we make decisions on that.
yeah, we'll get that on this. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. So again, our next meeting is April 6th. We will be here in this room. It's the final budget review. We'll go over all the revenues as a whole. Again, recap that. It's been a little while since we looked at all of the revenues. We'll look at the 3-part budget, which is administrative, capital, and program. All the additions that we've added in, anything we may have taken out at that time. April 13th, we're anticipating adoption of the budget as well as the property tax report card. And then May 4th is the annual budget hearing. The budget hearing will be held in the auditorium at the high school. Any other questions?
I don't think so. Marcus?
No.
Good. Sure. We have another general public comment session.
I'll process for next time.
All right, motion to adjourn the budget. Well, before we do that, thank you very much for coming out, enjoyed the presentation. Cannot thank you enough for last board meeting. It was awesome. And that one little girl, she never stops smiling. And they were dancing. It was phenomenal. So thank you very much. Yeah, it is. It's really something. So keep it coming, because that's one of the things that we really love about sitting on the board of education. is to see all these things. So thank you. Motion to adjourn budget workshop. Motion. Second. All in favor?
Yes.
Figure out one of these days I'll get it right. All in favor? Yes. Motion carries unanimously. Our next meeting is March 23rd. Right? Right. April 6th. April 6th. But it's in small print. April 6th is our next meeting. 6 o'clock is exact budget workshop, approximately 7 o'clock right here. We'll have maybe another side of the table arrangement. I don't know. Thank you very much. We are going to move into exec, but I just want you to know we're not, when we come out, we're not taking any action. So I have another motion.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. Yep, okay. So that's it. Thank you very much. Motion to move to exec for the purposes of discussing the paraprofessional units, collective bargaining negotiations. Motion. Second. All in favor? Yes, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.